Names podcast. I'm Waylon, your host,
We're still calling it that?
with Dylan Sneathan.
Apparently so.
And we're bringing in Alisa.
Oh, you said it right the first time, huh? We've been friends for 15
scaring
years.
me.
Jesus.
You know how many of them I met though? They're always like saying it wrong. You're saying it wrong. You're
Say
saying
it,
wrong.
Lisa with an A in front. Alisa.
Alisa's here now. No, for real. I've met Alicia's. I've met Alisa's.
Yeah.
I met. I just like it gets very confusing over
Yes,
there.
there's different iterations of the name for sure, and it's been annoying growing up.
I mean, my
with
name's
it.
Dylon, and you guys keep referring to me as Dylan.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Sorry about
annoying.
that, Dylon. Okay. Well,
Dylan.
today she's here from our friend from DC.
Well, what?
Yeah. So
Stands for
please.
the District of Columbia, for you uneducated plebs.
Plebs. Yeah, tell us about DC living. How is it up there in the DC world? How is it not being in a state?
How is it living in the city of sin?
Okay, well, to clarify, I say DC because it's easier, but I actually live in Northern Virginia, so right? I know. Holy
She's a
shit.
fake.
What is this? But it's considered the DMV area, so we'll get you a little bit more localized. So we've got, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. And so I'm right over the Potomac River, and I live in Alexandria, Virginia. So, shout out to The Walking Dead, which is...
Yeah. We've actually been to Alexandria. Actually, me and PJ. Well, over in Georgia.
That doesn't... That's what's funny, though, is
Sonoy.
like seeing it in the show, and then really, I'm like, there is no way this...
Is it really supposed to be near DC?
Well, it is that,
That's
and
where they're heading,
that's
remember?
where they're heading. But that suburb is not like anywhere in Alexandria because it's a very populated small city. Because the further you get up northeast, everything's packed together. Because that's where a lot of the infrastructure started. So it wasn't these big wide open spaces like in the south.
Yeah.
Everything was
No
up
yards.
and close. Correct. So to have
terrible.
that kind of suburb division, whatever you like to call it, would not. It
That's
wouldn't
really
work
supposed
out.
to be up there? I thought they were still in like the Atlanta area.
No, they're going all the way to DC because what's his name?
The first
mullet.
season where they go to the CDC or whatever.
Yeah, the mullet guys convinced them that he's got a cure and he's got to go meet with the president. As that was.
No,
the
that's
story.
the second time. The second go
No,
around.
but that's why they go to Alexandria.
why they're heading that direction.
So
I quit watching the show like 5 seasons ago.
Fair
I don't even know what's going on now.
But regardless, to circle back, a nice, business term there.
Don't go down the Walking Dead route. We'll go on.
Yeah, I was like,
that.
let's rein it in.
Yeah.
I'm good at doing that, but
She's good at reining it in.
apparently, yes. You gotta keep on the topics that you started on.
I'm just
I'm
saying.
not gonna address that. comment.
Those neighborhoods are so small, like their yards, because I've been there
Absolutely.
too.
They're
that you
small.
can literally pee on your neighbor's house from your window.
Yes, realistically you could, but everything is built up and deep versus the wide and kind of you see here. So we're DC living. I have to get my mind back to what we were talking about.
Next on Mythbusters.
So
we're going to be peeing on the neighbor's house from Washington,
Let's see
D.C.
if it works.
Zero Buster.
But-
or Rose Busters.
So moving there, I think the first thing was, obviously finding a place to live. So it was looking at the zip codes, like what's the safety look like, what's the distance, and then I knew that they had the metro system. It's not as expansive as New York, but I wanted to be able to get in because since I work for the headquarters at Postal Service, I wanted to be able to just hop on and go.
Great
I don't
band.
want to drive. Oh.
Oh, you don't
Yes,
work for
very.
the band. Oh, this is awkward.
Yeah.
I get rid of all my
Cut,
questions.
cut.
Fuck,
Change my
get it out, get it
questions.
out. No, don't want it. So I took all those into consideration. Then we found the place in Alexandria. And then the first thing that was a shocker was the deposits in terms of the housing compared to here. So what do you pay? Maybe 150, 200, 250 maybe for DFW. $500, no problem for your deposit. The price that they give you for the contract for rent is only good for 24 or 48 hours, so you have to respond pretty quickly. It's not as expensive as New York. You don't need a real estate agent, but is he good? Are you okay?
You're good over there, camera guy?
You're good, PJ.
Camera
it's
guy,
okay.
PJ.
Pause for edit now.
Pause. It's okay.
Pause for edit, which we never do.
Which-
No.
Just let
we
it
leave
roll
everything
raw.
in.
But so that was the first thing, was getting used to that, because I was like, holy shit, that's a big out-of-pocket cost that I wasn't anticipating. But then got the place I moved into, and I got it at a really good deal for the area, because I looked in terms of what to expect for the rent and the cost. I wasn't going in shocked. Mm-hmm. And then it was kind of just getting used to the I guess you could say, the vibe of the area. So a lot of people that live there have moved in. So a lot of people that, work for the government has probably moved.
It's always governmental-based worker or people primarily?
Mostly. Like, you'll get, like, the lawyers and, of course, the people on Capitol Hill and everything but like that. But a lot of it's, like, people with a good government job, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So you see a lot of families, and they live in more of the suburban areas that surround Maryland and Virginia, and then they usually commute in. And then there's the people that live in D.C., which is costs a lot of money to do so.
There's basically 2 Washington, D.C.s from when I went there. There was like the one you see on TV where it's all the government, like touristy bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like the shithole Washington, D.C. where all the fun stuff's at.
Hold on, there's fun stuff in D.C.?
Yes,
there
actually.
is fun stuff.
Is this on C-SPAN?
No,
like
DC is like one of the highest alcohol consumptions, I think, in the United States. Like,
excuse me, Texas.
No, his apartment. No, but no,
won.
like anywhere, like this is traveling 101. Do as the locals do, and if you go with that mindset, you can find things like all the hole in the wall. They exist. There's fun places everywhere.
There's a lot of things to do there.
But
if I drink at a bar in DC though, will or will I not be sitting next to agents and stuff?
Okay, you won't because COVID, and they'll make sure it never comes back.
Oh, it's all closed up there.
It's all closed. The bars are closed.
That's embarrassing. That's sad. Sorry, guys.
No, I'd rather be safe, so it's okay.
No.
I'll get.
All you gotta do is put your coffee filter on.
Oh,
That's science. Piece of cloth on your face. That's science.
You can still go to restaurants and get cocktails, but.
Oh, good.
So it's not like restaurants.
It's not like LA.
Open. No, we're not. No, it's not that extreme.
It's not draconian yet.
No, it's not draconian yet.
That always makes me immediately think to like fantasy novels, draconian this, draconian that, like the race draconians or the dragon race. Anyways,
nerd.
Yeah.
So anyways, there's this whole vibe around like a lot of people that live in the DC area that are working for big law firms around Capitol Hill. It's kind of like it's like toxic relationships or friendships where it's like you got to scratch my back and I'll scratch your kind of deal. And so there's this sense of just bullshit essentially.
House
like
of
you
cards.
you can't make authentic relationships with people, which is frustrating. And then it's so transient. I mean, people are moving in and out all the time.
But even you have to play the political game too?
Oh no, not what I do, but like I just figured that out, like living in the area and just talking to people, especially people that have grown up in Maryland and Virginia, and then they go like move further into the in DC,
swamp.
but closer to DC to work their good government job, so to speak. So I got a lot of that, and then Damien Uber drive for a bit, so he told me his stories like from people that he would drive around. So the first thing I was. It was terrifying. Like moving up there, I had no like friends. I did have an uncle that was there, but then he was moving up back to Ohio for his wife's family, and they were retiring. So I didn't know anybody. So I'm going in blind. So I mean that was scary, and it was one of the best things I ended up doing because there was a lot of personal growth of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm super extrovert, so it's like, how am I going to meet people? Because I don't have college. Like, I have work, but I don't have these dynamic institutes that I can go to and just like have a plethora of people that I can
get the social institution immediately. Like,
right. So a couple of my friends moved to New York, and so Damien and I went to New York. We just got bus tickets because it's like a 5-hour bus ride, 3-hour train ride, 1-hour plane, whatever you like.
Like going to Houston. Yeah.
Correct. So it was like $50 for round trip, and since we had just moved and we had bought all new furniture and stuff, we were trying to like save on the financials. And we went up there and hung out with my friends, and I was like, what are you doing to meet people up here? Because they had just moved like literally a few months the prior year before us. And so they told me that they were using Bumble BFF, which is like the friend version of the dating app.
Oh, yeah.
So I was
hated
like,
that dating app, but go on.
we can go into
They're all
that.
so fake.
We'll go into our experience on that.
I'm interested to hear it from the male's perspective since I have female friends, so I'm curious.
Because we were both excited about it.
We'll put that in the parking lot, so to speak.
Sorry,
guys, I'm gonna
How big of a parking lot?
What kind of cars are in this parking lot?
All right, let's move on.
But so that's how I met some of my like really good girlfriends that I have up there now. And what's sad is like a lot of them have moved, and I'm happy for them. My selfishness like misses them, but I'm happy for their growth professionally and personally. But it's due to the transient nature. So like a friend of mine, she's already up in New York. Another friend of mine, she's about to move down to Florida. I had another friend also move back home to Florida. So it's like a lot of people I meet, I'm friends with them for, 6 months to 2+ years of being there, and it's like just that turnover time. So
that's sad.
It's hard.
That's like being at my job with the servers flip. Like I don't get to know them anymore because it just flips immediately, and you're like, all right, bye.
Yeah. So it's like I value those relationships, and I still find ways to be committed and talk to them. It's not as extensive as obviously when they live there, but like they're important to me, and any kind of relationship in my life I value, so I want to keep that going, and I try my best to have some kind of constant.
She definitely does. Like she hits me up constantly, which is great. Like because I suck at keeping up in touch with people. Like I don't really talk to y'all unless y'all are in front of me. Like the texts and stuff, like occasional, But yeah, no, you keep doing it because I'm terrible with keeping up with people like on a constant basis. I like to touch base pretty often.
He's pretty terrible.
No, and
He's a terrible friend.
I know that about you, and it's not any offense.
Yeah.
It's more just
I like what we're doing right now. I like being able to do this, like the in person and the talking to people. And
I was just kidding about
in
that.
person, like
Yeah.
text,
Just
phone calls.
for the record.
I like to be able to
PJ?
hold our
PJ?
stories
PJ
until we're
got me?
actually
Got me,
like
PJ?
hanging out with each other, like in person.
No, I prefer the same. I'm like, let's go in, and I'm the person that's like, I'll hang out with you from 8 a.m. till like 2 in the morning. I love it. Like my extroversion feeds off that, but I know that that's not realistic in all the cases, so I do the best I can in between.
Yeah.
So. It's just and I don't mind because I have friends that are just like you, like girlfriends that like they just don't reach out, and I know it's not because they don't care, it's just because that's not their mode of communication. So I'm fine with putting forth that effort to be that first person to reach out.
I really wish we could have done your birthday party thing. That was gonna be dope.
Next year I'm gonna replan it, so like end of July. Just be on the lookout if everything's safe enough. Like I rescheduled the same Airbnb because I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna do that shit.
That was gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Remember I told you about that, PJ? The full weekend. It was gonna be like a full weekend boat and everything. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna do it again. Fuck it, it's gonna happen. I want it, and that's like one selfish thing I want to do for me.
Yeah, we'll
where
make it
all my
happen.
friends can come out.
Speaking of birthdays,
we all need it.
My big 3-0s this year or next year.
You're gonna get
Oh,
old,
mine
dude.
was
And
this
I
year.
want to do
You
a
old
roast.
people.
I know. You want to do a roast?
I want to do a roast.
A real roast?
Yeah.
You
Do it.
sure?
Yeah.
Um,
There's nothing.
sure?
There's nothing any of you guys could ever say to me that's gonna hurt my feelings.
What do you think, PJ? Can we hurt his feelings? I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's too much pressure.
Yeah, we're gonna roast you, Dylan.
We're gonna do the roast September 2021.
If you want to come,
Yeah,
you've been
open
watching this all in
invitation.
this video. It's open invitation.
Open
We're
invitation.
gonna roast his butt.
Oh fuck! Man,
Pretty
you gotta
hard,
get,
too.
You gotta rent out a whole place.
Theater.
With a nice
It's only $100. We can rent them out here in Dallas.
There you go.
Yeah.
You should do
Yeah.
that. That'll be
Yeah.
awesome.
You're invited as well.
Hey.
We're gonna put a big old slideshow of Dylan photos up on the screen
Oh God.
from baby inception.
Yes.
So there's gonna be like a 14-year gap where there's no photos.
Just blank.
Because like I went
absence.
through that phase hardcore because it's hard. It's hard enough to get photos of me now.
What we're gonna do is random photos, and we'll like do the whole circle in the background, like far distance. Like if you
Yeah.
see here, that's
Right.
Dylan.
Yeah, like the Bigfoot ones where
Yeah.
it's like this is clearly evidence of 14-year-old Dylan in his hoodie in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Just-
But yeah, so we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but like there's a monster that lives in the metro air like part of the
Like DC Metro area.
like the
Have you heard of it?
specifically like the I guess
so.
you'd call it the subways, the rails.
Oh, the
underneath-
Metro. Yeah, the Metro.
Apparently it lives down there, and it's what's known in the internet mostly bullshit base of monster hunters.
What he means is awesome.
No,
Awesome
but
base.
it's like most people make up stories, on there. It's where you get the best horror.
We just lost that one
So
listener.
give us
Sorry,
the
one listener.
rundown of-
Yeah,
He's offended.
yeah. So basically, well, that's
Wanted
what
to
I'm
hear
getting
about
at.
this.
So you'll see a lot of this on like different forums and stuff. People talking about these creatures that are called like a flesh Geist, which is essentially very similar to like the Navajo skinwalkers.
Mm-hmm.
It gets confused with them, but it's a completely different thing. So a skinwalker would basically be like an evil like Native American spirit or like
In the woods.
yeah, they typically live in nature, but they basically like
Supernatural, episode 575.
well, they're not
Look
Wendigos.
into it.
That's a different thing.
I thought they were
which
like-
I hated that. Like that bothered me so much in Supernatural because they'd be like a Wendigo. It's no. It's not a Wendigo, it's a Wendigo. Like, stop.
All right, so.
But anyways.
Ghosts in the metro.
So yeah, so basically, what these creatures are, these flesh guys, they're basically like they're big, tall, skinny, like abnormally humanoid, skinny but very tall.
Almost like Slenderman, kind of.
That's their basketball player.
Kind
How
of.
dare you?
And it's like got very pale gray skin. And very like like almost sunken eyes and like very like very like almost like it's like an undead looking thing, with like stringy long white hair and like very long pronounced fingers, and they apparently like there's sightings of them going back decades though all across the country, but they're normally in isolated woodland areas, so like out in nature.
Okay.
And what the urban legends, so to speak, is basically you'll hear someone you know's voice that shouldn't be there. So like let's say you're out camping with your friends in Montana.
Okay.
And your mom is all the way over in Weatherford, Texas. Right. But you'll hear your mom calling out to you, or one of your friends who's right next to you, and you'll hear it from off in the distance, trying to call you to it.
Okay.
And every now and then you'll actually see them, but they'll be acting very strange. Like when someone's giving you the uncanny valley, if you guys are familiar with that term. So an uncanny valley is the reason why you're afraid of wax figures or like dolls or stuff is because they look human, but you can tell they're not. There's something off about them.
Which is what, like that movie, right? The Polar Express?
Yes, that's why that movie freaks people out, is because there's nothing wrong with what you're seeing, but it's human, but it's got no soul. Like you can see it in its eyes.
Yeah.
And that's where that term comes from, because it's basically in what your psychological brain, your caveman brain, if you will, it's giving you a signal of like this is a predator, this is disguised, it's a human, there's something wrong here.
Right.
And so you get this adrenaline going. That's what that is.
Okay.
And but basically what it is like these people there's a lot of these stories where they'll encounter this thing.
Yeah.
And apparently it's abnormally strong and fast, and it's like very malevolent, and you can just feel like a dark energy if you believe in that stuff. But apparently there's one that lives in the tunnels of that metro station, of the metro station.
Do you know which metro station it is, or which line?
I think it's been seen on multiple ones.
Okay.
Like I don't think it stays in just one particular,
Okay.
but it's been seen down there. You'll see like what looks like a weird tree branch in the dark.
Okay.
And then you'll if you pay attention to it, you'll every now and then you'll see it move, and you can see the outline of it. And apparently, because like I said, most of these stories are just people that are really creative writers, so you can't tell what's true. It's kind of like with UFOs and Bigfoot and ghosts. Most of these people believe what they're saying because fear literally can create illusions.
Or your body's you're automatically, like that video you sent me.
And
you're
that's
automatically looking for a human shape or
you're
faces.
Humans naturally look for patterns.
Absolutely.
Which is why we heard voices on that when we did the ghost video. Now we've since gone back, which we'll get into later, multiple times, and pick either nothing up or just very vague stuff. But basically, you naturally hear or see what you want to see, and I think that's very interesting. But when I go back to DC, I'm gonna hunt that motherfucker and I'm gonna kill it.
Why do you have to
Let
kill
me
it?
know, and I'll join you. Cause I'm curious now.
It's literally like it's
Dylan.
No, Waylon.
It has rights.
No, it doesn't. It's evil. It's literally like so. I've talked to you about this before. I don't know if we've ever got it on the podcast, but there's also a big connection to this and mass disappearance of children in national parks. So this is something that's not been really talked about on the news a lot because it's kind of hush hush. But all around the country since basically the 40s and the 50s, massive amounts of children have just gone up and disappeared with no explanation. And if they're found, usually in places that they shouldn't be able to get to as a child, like on top of like a big hill that they couldn't climb, or like their clothes will be like tattered by like almost like a predator type thing, or they'll be talking about how like a relative who is either long dead or way too far away, or that they could possibly not know was the one trying to talk to them or lure them away, like their grandma was trying to pull them away. And it's like we're talking like thousands of documented cases of this that never gets talked about, and they all go inside with these same stories of this monster.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, if you come up there, let me know, and I'll take you a tour around, and I'd also be curious to see, because before COVID, I rode that thing all day. And
I've been on it a few times.
Is it open right now?
The metro is open. I mean, like, just,
You gotta socially distance.
Wear your mask and stuff, but yeah,
So
it's
what you're
open.
saying is,
If you guys do that
me
with
and
me
PJ
out,
go up there, we're gonna go on a hunt.
Hey, and
without
let me, know,
me, the
let
guy
know.
who came, oh, I hate you guys.
You're gonna be our operator.
If you
We're gonna
guys
call
go-
you in and be like, "What tunnel do we need to go down, Dylan?" What
Yeah, let me know. Like,
So-
I'll
so much
take
hate
you
for you right
around
now.
to what.
You can come with.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to work that job for another week. Say you got COVID.
Yeah.
It gives you 2 weeks break.
Y'all
From a
are-
job you haven't started.
Shit.
All right, Dylan's been at because COVID's weird, right? So it's been messing with job opportunities. First of all,
Of course.
like everything I've applied for and stuff, no answers for the most part, or it's people trying to get you in on the getting you to be those stupid sales where you go and annoy people at like a mall or at a Walmart.
Yeah.
So that's the only opportunities that really popped up for me. There's been a few other ones, but they keep hiring from in-house instead of hiring from the outside. Dylan is getting stuck on like a loop of ending up stuck in like the warehouses or a cleaning crew or things like that.
Construction, stuff
And
like that.
there's no way for us to get into the legit jobs right now. It's like a wall because the
because
companies.
I'm not going to go to sales right now when no one's buying anything.
Yeah.
No one's making any money, so
Yeah.
why am I going to try to sell?
Well, and not just that, but it's like what they're going to do is because there's more of a market of employees trying to get jobs, they're going to like they're going to stiff you like on what you're worth
Yep.
and what they can pull you for because it's more competitive, which is fucked.
I don't know. What's most frustrating for me is, people are we're getting paid for almost a year, $600 extra bucks to stay at home while I'm doing the essential jobs
I understand that.
with a mask on, doing physical labor in a warehouse that's not air conditioned to make sure you get your fucking toilet paper
Listening
you
to
didn't need.
beep boop.
I know, and that's
But
and that's
no
valid.
extra for that.
And that's valid in terms of like the risk that you have to go in as a labor workforce. Like, where do you see that?
It is what it is, but it's just, seeing people complain about not having jobs. It's like, you all realize that warehouses are all hiring. Like, you just don't want to go to a warehouse.
Well,
But at the same time, like, you're complaining about having bills to pay, right? And there's a job open right here, but you're saying no to that job because you'd rather stay at home.
And make more money.
And then you want to, and then I don't want to hear you complain. Like, that's fine. That's fine. That's your choice to do that.
Well, like we
but
talked
don't
about
complain to me, the guy who's still having to live the same way
Yeah.
and getting paid even less.
I agree to a point, like, where if you are in the professional world, like, yes, like, maybe you don't want to do manual labor, and I can understand where they're...
Do you think I wanted to do manual labor?
I didn't say that, though.
Just saying.
I know, and your frustration is valid, absolutely. I don't want to diminish that by any means. I'm just saying from their perspective is probably, like, that they want a similar professional job, but I agree that they shouldn't necessarily put burdens on you or like they should be more sympathetic to
Well,
what your experiences
it's not even
are.
just watching like people with office jobs. Like I mean I get it because I've worked office jobs too. For me it was a huge downgrade going back to physical jobs. But it was, like no one's going to take care of me.
Right,
So I had to do what I had to do.
Right, you felt that, like, you know what, I don't mind putting in the towel for this, and you are frustrated that other people
Yeah,
aren't
because
willing to.
I used to have to
meet
wear
that.
office clothes and get on the
Yeah,
computer and all that
yeah.
stuff, but it is what it is. But at the same time, you'll see all these bartender people asking people to send them, donations while they...
Which I don't do.
Which is fine, I get it.
Right,
but
right.
don't sit here when you can go get a job. Hell, you could have Uber drived, but instead you're going to ask people, you're going to beg for money when you could get a job.
You're, I think, disillusioned with people that don't have the grit to do some of that hard stuff.
Yeah, it's just I don't want to. I don't want to see someone complain when the option that gets them out of the situation that they're in is right in front of them. It's like, dude, come on, because that's coming out of my check,
right,
to pay that extra $600
Right.
because I'm still getting taxed
right.
for the job that I'm being forced to work overtime now, which is taxed even more. The fact that overtime is taxed is insane. So you're getting punished by working extra hard so you can pay your own bills, but now you have to pay another bill to pay for someone else's bill. That is a flawed system.
And I like what you're saying is valid. So I think it's just, and we don't know every person's situation, like if they
No, of
have
course
the
not.
ability to do that and stuff. But I understand where you're coming from, and it's a valid viewpoint to have. And I can see why when you have done that transition, you're like, why can't you do this as well? So
Well, for me, it's like I don't really blame that. It's just the fact that, like, okay, so we're going to go out of our way to take care of the people who won't do what they have to do, but you're not gonna take care of the people that are forced to do what they have to do. Like, you know, you're gonna take care of, you know, a guy with his cushy desk job, but you're not gonna take care of this single mom who's having to work 2 jobs, one at a warehouse, one as a maid. You know, she doesn't get any extra pay. So how's that? Like, she's not getting this COVID boost for that.
Most of them did. They filed for unemployment because they got cut from whatever job they had.
A lot of people quit their jobs so they could do that.
Yeah, well, not everybody was in the position for a warehouse job.
That's some of these jobs are still essential, is what I'm saying. Like these people were having to work 3 jobs, and they couldn't afford to quit them, and you know, like it's and if you quit, you don't get unemployment. Like, that's not how that works. You don't just get to go, oh, fuck this job, give me some government money. So you basically have to get fired in order to do that. Well, these people a lot of people can't afford to get fired.
Yeah. Because
that's a risk.
Yeah.
So you're basically stuck in a loop, you know, getting punished for working extra hard, barely making ends meet, and you didn't get a single crumb of that? Nothing? But you're going to pay for that, and with your overtime, you're paying for that. And trust me, if you're in one of these essential jobs, during COVID, you worked a shit ton of overtime.
Yeah.
And you got punished for that too. And I think that, like, that's insane. And then now with this new stimulus bill, 600 whole bucks.
2,000.
Ooh, 200 now. You know what would be better? You know what would be better?
They didn't sign it.
Oh, they didn't sign it?
Yeah, they passed it.
Of course not.
There's people fighting it too.
Well, that's because they keep trying to add shit that has nothing to do with COVID in it.
We're helping all the other countries with random stuff.
Well, and
that has
that's
nothing
not
to do
just
with COVID.
Democrats, that's Republicans too. They've been doing this for years. A bill come up, so let's say we're trying to pass a bill to fund cancer relief for the 9/11 victims and the first responders, okay, which is an actual thing that happened. It was blocked 17 times in a row because all you got to do is give money to give these people, you know, health care aid. You know,
didn't the talk show host guy have to go and like do it like 20 years later? What was his
Jon
name?
Stewart.
Jon Stewart.
He was the main reason
He
why
had
we
to go
got it
and
taken care of.
he fought what, like a year ago, and it finally got pushed through.
Yeah, he was the main reason why it finally got taken care of.
And it's been 20 years.
Yeah,
20 years.
Because they kept trying to add random stuff to it that had nothing to do with it, like to pay for random shit that has like their little pet projects that have nothing to do with the 9/11, you know, tragedy. And they kept trying to use this as that's the problem with politics, is it's not about you. It doesn't really matter who you vote for.
Trying to tag
left wing,
in.
right wing, same bird.
So yeah. So we started out with
It's ADD. Welcome to our podcast.
Welcome
it
to
started
our
out
podcast.
with the DC, then into the
well,
Ghost down
DC
here,
is
so-
relevant to
DC is relevant because it feeds into it. But is there anything else that you're curious about in terms of living there?
Is it cold?
No.
Do they put beans in their chili?
I don't think
That's actually a really good question.
They don't really serve chili. It's mostly seafood, Mediterranean.
Where do you get your chili
Well, I know
dog?
there's a chili dog place
more
there that's
health
really
food.
famous, but
So it's primarily seafood though?
Seafood, Mediterranean.
Yeah,
lots
you're
of
right
health
next to
I love
food.
Mediterranean
you're
food.
like right next to.
It
you
does
know.
good. There's good Mediterranean. Oh my gosh, and Korean barbecue in Annandale, like.
There's one around here we have to go try. What was the name of it, PJ? Some Korean barbecue joint.
Helpful.
Burnt rice. Burnt rice was the name
rice.
of
Why
it.
That's a
would you
terrible
call that
name.
name? Yeah, that's.
Well, I mean, I went to a restaurant
No, if
that
you're
was.
doing hot pot, it's like
Yeah.
See that?
crunchy, like maybe.
That was Alpha Brain.
What?
What?
I told you
What
I
is
remember
Alpha
random
Brain?
stuff immediately. That was Alpha Brain.
There was a.
Alpha Brain's an on it thing.
There
Oh,
was
I
a.
like, I
yeah.
don't know what you're talking
It's a
about.
There was a
supplement.
Thai
Okay.
restaurant for a long time at Watauga called No Pho King Way. It was amazing.
That was pretty good.
It's not there anymore.
pretty
though.
classy.
It was, and I genuinely don't know if he knew, like the owner, like he was a little old, you know, Vietnamese man. I don't know if he
Maybe
knew.
that was like his family heritage. thing.
Yeah, like I don't know if he knew or if like it was on purpose, or if he just like it just was like a weird coincidence, you know.
I bet it was on purpose.
It had to have been.
They have humor, you know, right?
What? Well, no, I was just. I was like,
You look for reassurance, like,
well, you never know if something's lost
Asian
in
friends,
translation.
you
You
gonna
know?
tag in here?
Oh.
Because there was a gas station I used to go to all the time called Mr. T gas station. So the
Love that name.
the A never came in. So like there was just MR and T Mart, and he was like, fuck it, and he just put Mr. T gas. And I asked him about it, and he's just like, yeah, dude, I'm a broke old man. I just do what I gotta do.
Oh my gosh.
Huh? Great gas station. Though.
So yeah, if we do pop into DC, are you wanting to join us on our adventures?
Absolutely, and I'll take you around.
When are you supposed to go back?
I go back on Saturday the 2nd.
So you're gonna be on the 2nd. We're gonna, if we go up there, we're gonna be
Uh-huh.
popping up there on like the 5th.
So that's what?
We're gonna overnight it on Monday to Tuesday and get up there like afternoon.
So was that Wednesday?
That Wednesday's the 6th, so we'd be getting up
Okay.
there on Tuesday
The 5th?
like evening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I
if
can go-
Wednesday
if
is the 6th, Tuesday would probably be the 5th.
I can log off 4:30 and meet you.
That might be
Wherever.
pretty fun, PJ. Are we doing this? Are we really gonna do a double
You should.
drive up there?
It's fun. It's
We were gonna fly, but the flights are a lot more expensive than just driving.
the flights can get they're not expensive, but it's hard to get like discounted. I don't know why it is to DC. It's just that way.
And then plus also like the whole like getting around scenario.
How's
And
the airport
I
there?
don't think we can find a hotel because apparently the hotels are already starting to shut down and stuff because of everything. It's
Oh,
too many people. There's an influx of
shit.
people. It's gonna be packed. So I don't even know how close we'll actually get to the real events happening. But
Right.
Oh, because of the
yeah, it's supposed to be like a million plus showing up.
Interesting.
Holy fuck.
It's gonna be interesting. The sea of people is
I
just in
didn't
general
know
gonna be
this
fun to
was
see.
Is the Smithsonian still closed?
I have to look at museums because I know DC and Virginia are different, so I sometimes don't keep them all in track. I don't think they are. I'd have to double check. Like restaurants are open, like the monuments are open that you can go to, but I don't know if the Smithsonian's are or not. So I have to check that.
I'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
because
like
you
to.
got to go to the Air and Space Museum, man. It's my favorite museum in the world.
I like the natural
Smithsonian's
history.
that's a good one
Is
too.
it better than the Houston one?
Oh yeah,
Really?
yeah, because that's all the funding
The
goes.
Smithsonian's are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, most of them are amazing. The only one that sucks is like American history. That one's shit.
Yeah, they don't put a lot of money into
That
that
one is like just a plethora of random. It doesn't
Yeah.
have any.
There's no organizational.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
there's no
just-
method to it. It's just like, oh, this is America. Look at
Yeah,
it.
like different points, and they don't have any continuity between them.
Mhm.
You walk in,
Oh.
they try to get you because they have the Batman car. You're like, ooh, cool, pop culture. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But then you go around, there's no like consistency between any of the exhibits, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
That brings up that question I was talking about, PJ. The Man in High Castle. Okay, so it's a show about like what if the Nazis won the war and America was beaten. So they actually ended up conquering America, and this
Okay.
show's based in 1963.
Okay.
Okay, and I've only seen the first like 4 or 5 episodes, but basically the Nazis
book is
run the
better.
West Coast, Japanese run the East Coast. There's a neutral ground in the middle, and the countries are in a Cold War of sorts, where they're waiting for one of the two to fall. Hitler has some sort of disease, and they think he's going to die within a year, but he's still alive
Okay.
in this storyline or in this timeline. But my question is, because a lot of that show is really good at doing what I guess the director would think of what the country would look like. First of all, America would look like if the Nazis ran it, but like the music, the score. For instance, it's 1963. If you pay attention to the score, all the songs are still like 1920s, like 1930s music only. They never advance to the invasion of the British because they're probably taken over too by the Nazis.
So like jazz.
There is no rock.
Okay.
It's all the old school, like old country,
It would be
Americana,
jazz, like old
jazz.
school 20s jazz.
But that's
Yeah.
it. It stopped.
Okay.
And then they make the cities look like trashed out, like Gotham style. There's papers blowing around and just not taken care of. So my question is, if from a historical standpoint, we know that the Nazi movement rose as a kind of like a hippie movement of America during not a Reformation, but a Renaissance. The word you would use for it. It was like a Renaissance era because they loved like the French. What was going on in France at the time?
What?
France and stuff at the time. And so they came out of that, ended up becoming the concept of fascism and everything.
What? What
So this is the conversation start.
That's
Don't,
not
Dylan,
no,
you're
that's not
forgetting.
history
All
at
right,
all.
so Dylan,
What the
Nazis,
fuck?
where'd they come from?
Okay, so fascism arose in Italy with El Duce. What the fuck's his name? He was I can't think of his name because he's so irrelevant. But fascism started during the Spanish Civil War. You had basically it ended up being like a 4-way battle. So the 4 groups were like the original Spanish kingdom, the loyalists. Then you had the communists. Then you had the anarchists. And then from that, a 4th group arose, which was essentially what had happened in Peaky Blinders, where it was like the logical extreme.
The Mussolini, right?
Yeah, Mussolini, that's his name, El Duce. He basically came up with this concept of basically taking it communism one step further, which is
Right.
fascism.
Right, and that's
And-
what I'm saying from
yeah.
the Nazi thing, that they were coming
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of like, you know,
Hit-
Hitler was an artist.
Yeah.
All those people were kind of artists and stuff, and they started
Uh-huh.
coming up with their own concept of communism. What
Yeah.
I'm saying though is, do you think that they would have let America go to crap, or let it look nice
No.
and well kept?
On either one of them. So what would happen, and we can actually, we have like actual examples of this in history. So let me explain. So after, you know, the rise in Mussolini, which inspired Hitler to change his philosophies, and it's basically inspired Nazism, which is essentially like a racist version of fascism. Because fascism actually doesn't have any, like, they don't give a fuck about race. That's irrelevant. It's all about the nation. Whereas Nazis, you know, they decided they needed a scapegoat and thus blamed the Jews and the Gypsies and all the other people. So basically, it's all under the socialism banner. Socialism is like the main thing because it's the National Socialist Party. But basically, the plan at first, you know, for the first couple of years in Germany was great because they had all the infrastructure.
It was
of
the
Germany.
rise, right? Because he was trying to get the infrastructure better.
Yes, so the reason why it worked at first was because it's highly organized, because they're German, and that's their culture. But they also had the benefit of already having all these, you know, they had the best engineers in the world. They had a lot of the best scientists in the world. So it worked at first for them because they had that going for them. But as you can see throughout the war, Hitler made horrible, horrible decisions because he was insane, and more importantly, a drug addict. He was on, you know, uppers and downers like crazy. Like his doctor was a quack. So he was prescribing him basically meth and morphine at the same time. So he was constantly injecting himself with these fucked up cocktails, which is why in videos you can see him rocking back and forth, and he's aging rapidly, and he's
teeth grinding.
Yeah, and he's making horrible decisions like invading Russia before he needs to. And basically their command structure was fucked. So like in normal military, you have, you know, your general, you know, and all the way down, and they all answer to the general, and the generals answer to the president. Okay, well, in the Nazi system, like all totalitarian dictatorships, they're all paranoid and expecting everyone to replace them, which makes sense because that's
Like
what
Game
would
of
happen.
Thrones, right?
Yes. So in that case, every general had to answer to Hitler, but their own officers, instead of answering to them, also had to answer to Hitler. So there was all this backstabbing and no organization, which is why they fell apart and lost the war. We got very lucky because they were kicking our ass. But then, in all these other countries that kept with communism, they all started off as communists, and thus, like all communists do, wiped out every person with an education first. Like in Cambodia, they killed off anyone with glasses. Because glasses, no, this is true.
Dang.
Anyone that had glasses was immediately murdered by the state police because they were intellectuals and thus a threat to the communist regime. Because if you had a knowledge of anything that happened before communism, you would know that communism, A, would fail, and B, you would have an alternative. So they had to get rid of you. And most of the time, the people that are actually part of the revolution themselves are the first to go. So like in Russia, the communist leaders, the revolutionaries, were all killed by Stalin and Lenin because they were a threat to the new order. And thus, everything starts collapsing because so the reason why capitalism works is because it's essentially an ecosystem. It's perfect, no. But it works because in order for me to get paid, I have to give you something to buy. And that's why it works, because there's actually a reason. But when you take away someone's reason to actually work, because he's going to get paid the same as the guy that doesn't work,
They're not going to want to work.
it just every time. And in China, in Mao's infinite wisdom, they were having, you know, they were forcing people to become farmers who didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And they had this, you know, problem with, like, you know, pests and stuff. So basically Mao, because he's a genius, was like, we're going to kill all the sparrows, because fuck sparrows, they're eating our corn, or whatever the fuck they were growing.
I was going to say, do you mind if I go back to his original question?
Yeah,
Whenever
well,
you're done?
I'm getting to this,
okay.
yeah. So they killed off all the sparrows.
Okay.
Okay, then all the bugs come in and eat all the crops. There's no sparrows to kill the bugs. Mm-hmm. Mass starvation, okay? Then they go, oh, fuck, we just fucked up. And instead of fixing the problem, and this is what happens in all you know, totalitarian dictatorships, they go, oh, well, it wasn't my fault. It was this person's fault. and then they start blaming each other, and then the secret police, like most of the people that get killed by the secret police weren't being followed by the secret police until their neighbors ratted them out. And that's what would happen in every country that goes to these totalitarian things. And that's why you end up with mass poverty. That's why I was talking about this. Because now there's no food. Now you're paranoid. You're betraying everyone. And the only way you can move up is if you betray everyone for the party. This is why everything's owned by the same place. That's why nothing can change. And if you criticize anything, black bag. Yeah, so it would eventually become a totalitarian wasteland like China, like North Korea, like Cuba.
North Korea is pretty clean, though. They keep it pretty...
In the photos that you're allowed to see. That's the thing, is like China looks great on TV.
It may look boring and bland,
but it's not. But you're
clean.
only seeing what they're allowing you to see. Like, you know, like if you actually if you ever hear or see interviews with people who actually escape these countries, they show you a completely different reality than the clean, perfect cities. Of course the city is going to look perfect in the parts that Vegas looks fucking completely different on the commercials than it does in real life.
Right.
But the reality is it's dirty as fuck in most of the places other than outside the strip, which is the selling point. Well, if you're trying to sell that your dictatorship is perfect, of course it's going to look perfect in the propaganda.
Well, I mean, do you think because the nation wouldn't be kept up is because the Americans were depressed if they lost the war?
I think certain parts of the country would look nice.
So say like...
So your downtown D.C., where all the propaganda would be filmed, your downtown square of Madison, you know, the Manhattan, those would look great because you'd be killed if you were littered. But outside of that, and the outskirts of the country, would look like a nuclear bomb went off.
Because they make the way they do the set, which is glorious how they do it, but they like a lot of the say like that neutral zone, just like Colorado and stuff. It's like the city's
is
never...
it a DMZ?
The city's net. Well, it's because they have to keep a barrier for it's a Cold War. They don't want to be that close to each other. So those nations are that area is like as if it was kind of abandoned in 19.
Well, think about it. Think about it. So you're going to have a population
that's
always going to be, you know, like underneath the lid. There's going to be a bunch of pressure because there's going to be a lot of citizens, especially in this country, that are going to be like, "Fuck this."
There is that's the rebellion
so there's going
part.
to be a lot of graffiti, a lot of disrespect for authority because authority hasn't earned your respect because it's totalitarian. You're going to have, you know, massive, you know, civil conflict. You're going to have, you know, endless corruption. That's what always comes with it. The reason why the Soviet Union, one of the biggest reasons why they fell apart was not only was it a caste system, this is always what happens. You know, you promise everyone, oh, we're going to give you all that, you're going to be just like us, everything's going to be equal, and it's going to be great. And then, you know, reality kicks in because that's literally impossible. It's not impossible for equality of opportunity. Mm-hmm. Equality of outcome is impossible, and that's the problem. Is they always promise that.
It's because we're human, and humans always want more. Yeah.
But that's the problem is when you promise this pipe dream, and you can't deliver because you literally can't. It's against the laws of physics to deliver that because there's not infinite resources. You can't pull a Jesus and break some bread into more bread. That's not how that works. Right. That's why they had bread lines, and then the have-nots become a lot bigger because the only people that have are the people that stole power through their revolution, and thus become as a new caste system. Right. The elite and everyone else every time. And then that's going to piss off these people, and guess what springs from that? More crime. More crime shoots up 3,000%. Now, do they kill people on sight? Of course, they throw them in salt mines.
Right.
But it's worth more to do these illegal things because you're going to get paid a lot more. So now the black market explodes, and that's why we have the Russian mafia, which basically runs Russia right now. That's Putin was a KGB agent and a black market mafia boss.
And I look at your question from because I'm not a history buff like you, so impressed with all that. But I look at it from a sociological and psychological point of view. So they're probably going to come in and they're going to try to indoctrinate, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because Wagner and stuff, they were it was pristine. Everything was pristine.
Correct. And they're going to use fear and other tactics that aren't really going to change someone's belief system. So we look at how you change your beliefs. So there's this ABC model. So attitudes, behaviors, cognition. That's how.
I like that.
Yeah, it's great. It's from social psychology. So it's how those things are connected to each other and how they change. So they have to align within your frame of like who you are and how you interact with the world, or else if something's off, you're going to realign it, right, to reset those parameters. So the easiest one probably to change is usually like behaviors like cognition and attitudes are harder. Those are more set into your identity and your beliefs. So, you know, knowing like how Americans are in terms of, if we're just doing a big paintbrush, right? Like trying to go away from individuation, like they're proud of their country.
Well, the thing that established the super proudness of our country was the World War II, and like that's what set a standard for us. So if we lost that,
we're
all we have is the Old West, and like and then
like,
the World War One. Like that's all we got.
There's a sense of hopelessness, and I feel like there would be a sense of what's called learned helplessness. So if you look at, it's a horrible example, but it's an experiment that they did to show this concept. So they had these dogs inside of cages that, and I believe the floor was.
Talking about Pavlov's dog?
No.
Oh, the electrified dog.
The electrified, yeah, he knows what I'm talking about. So they had the floor completely electrified.
Science isn't always a good thing.
We can get into like the Zimbabwe, like the goodness, I can't think, but like the prison study with the inmates and.
Wasn't that in San Francisco?
Yeah, we can go down like all
let's
those.
do it.
So milligrams. But
I'll let you finish that first, but yeah, let's go down that rabbit hole.
So there will be that sense, and I want to make the connection here and explain the background so you can see where I'm going. So they kept the dog in a cage, and the floor was electrocuted. So they would just like electrocute the dog. So of course, the first time the dog's gonna try to find a way out, right?
Yeah.
Survival instinct kicks in. You want to survive. And they keep doing it, so it's like trained that like this dog has literally no escape. And I don't know the extent of time that it took for the dog to finally feel the sense of helplessness.
That's a gun.
No, it's not.
That was a gun.
No, it's not.
That was a gun. I swear that was a gun. That was not someone banging on something like our older one. That was real, right, PJ?
I've never... Okay.
That was absolutely real just now.
That was a 9mm.
That was definitely one.
Or it's...
We've only caught the other sound on the recording before, so we can easily compare the two.
Yeah,
but
let's compare it.
That was actually real.
That's either a 9 or a 45.
How many shots was that? 4? 5?
Wow.
Well, we did hear a zoom off afterwards, so probably.
Well,
you heard a car drive off?
This is America. That was in the street.
Well, we'll probably hear, sirens or something if it's actually a gun. So that's how we'll determine it. If there's sirens and stuff, yeah, we just heard a drive-by. If not, it's just fireworks. Well, it's about to be New Year's.
Think about that.
Okay,
Could have been a firecracker. It's almost New Year's, dude. And you're in the middle of little Mexico.
I don't know how to... We'll see. Just my brain...
Yeah, but I don't know. I've been in more shady areas than I guess all of you guys, so I'm not as phased.
Plenty of shady.
No,
Yeah, Clifton. Ooh.
You forget what I meant.
You don't know about that one street in Clifton, though.
Yeah.
So I will just redirect my brain back to where it was going.
Yeah, the dog.
So
I don't think it was that long, if I remember right.
I don't know this. I wish I could...
It gave up pretty quick.
I could look at it, but essentially then they left a very obvious opening after that point, and then they would shock it. And the dog, like, wouldn't leave the little barrier, even though it had an opening, because they had learned it was just like, I'm defeated. I give up. What's the point of
They
trying?
black-pilled the dog.
It's fucked. And so I feel like that would essentially happen to, like, the society. And then you also have two different cultural, like, perspectives coming in, and I feel like there would be some clash among that too to readjust. And I feel like I said, it would be fear-based instilled. It would be like very much regimental or military-wise coming down. And so people would probably oblige to survive to keep their family safe, whatever their motivation is, but it would just be to get through the day.
Yeah.
So I could see to the point of his history point of keeping the propaganda spaces clean and upbeat so they can show the world how well they're doing. And if they're controlling the media, then that's easy to do. But if they're not really caring to go and make sure that there's, infrastructure taken care of, that, trash cans are being cleaned, etc., then the people are probably, if they're feeling that learned helplessness, so to speak, then I could see them letting things go into a state
Right, they're just kind of depressed.
Because
kind of
there's
like North
this
Dakota.
depression.
Well, look at Cuba.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could see that happening because they would be like, why the fuck should I care anymore? So it's essentially exacerbating that internal feeling into their external environment.
I mean, look at Detroit. Like Detroit, what happened to Detroit was they made bad, policy decisions as far as how they ran the local city, and it's filled with corruption to this day.
Yeah.
But basically what they did is they forced most of the businesses to leave Michigan because it was impossible to run a business there. And so they left for better places like Texas and, unfortunately, other countries where they can basically have free slave labor, but we're not going to criticize those companies because they put, nice things on their commercials. But, Nike. But anyways, you drove them out of there, and Detroit went from being like almost as big and as important as New York to now it's like a third world country when you go there. Mm-hmm. Like it's literally like looks like Baghdad, and that's terrifying. And that only happened in 30 years, and that's with capitalism. Imagine if there was no businesses at all. Everything's owned by one corrupt state. It's gonna take maybe 5 or 6 years for that to collapse. It's the thing about those systems is it's so top heavy that there is no room to breathe when in the poor, because as a poor person you have no escape. You either join the evil party, the empire, or you get squashed by the empire. That's why I'm so defensive about capitalism, because it's the only system ever that we've ever come up with as humans that you can go from that to this. Like feudal society, you were a serf, and until like the modern century, we really had no other choice. And with that top heavy, because even in serfdom, you could work your way out of that. It would take forever and it'd be horrible, but you still could escape it. But you'd escape to what? Being, selling stuff, which, but then in fascism though, it's literally like having that pressure on yourself. Mm-hmm. Like you could physically feel it. That's how it's been described by people that have escaped. So in that constant state of fear, you're like everything is life or death. Because everyone including your own brother, your own mom, could snitch you out for not falling in line, and thus you're a bad person, thus you're black bad, because it is survival of the fittest, basically. Mm-hmm. It is, you will, like I was saying, like when Soviet Union collapsed and East Germany was finally allowed to join West Germany, they found all the KGB records, and it basically indicated that every single person, like I'd say out of 100 cases, I think it said like 87 of them were reported by their closest people for not falling in line with the party. And that's where I would go with that too. And when you create that kind of fear system, and that mistrust, there is no growth. So it's going to go to shit because you have no respect for anything. And so the two people that'll split off. You'll have your sheep, who are doing anything that they can to survive, so they just go along with it, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. And then you have the people who just out of despair go, fuck it. And they will try to burn everything down and not give a shit, and they'll just try to live as quick of a life as they can until they're gone.
Right, they'll kind of like go rogue.
Yes.
And then eventually there will be some kind of revolution because there will be people that band together, I think.
Yeah, there's a rebellion starting.
It'll maybe be a generation 2 or down, but they'll see like
chipping away
the
at
detriment it's happened to their parents or their family, and they're like, "Fuck this, I'm done," and then that angers them. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Vietnam right now, believe it or not, which was a communist country, since we fucked up and invaded, and I mean they were going to be communists anyways because they had that war. But basically, when we intervened, we accelerated it, and they went full on communism. They had their whole thing. And surprisingly, of all the countries, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not giving it a pass. Like, it was horrible to live there, but it worked better than almost any of the other systems. Mm-hmm. They committed all of their war crimes, obviously, and their atrocities on their own people.
Is it because of how small it was, or
no? Well,
easier to
yes,
control?
But basically, like they went through all their atrocities because they've committed. Of course, every single country that's ever been communist has committed mass amounts of horrible, unacceptable crimes on its people, but eventually their leaders realized that they couldn't just survive on rice paddies, so they started letting it be a little bit more capitalistic, and now it's one of the most capitalistic countries in East Asia, and it's like booming right now, and it's really funny how that works. Okay, so we were talking earlier. You were a psychology major, which is awesome. If you read books, it's fine. But there's the astrology of psychology is the Myers-Briggs 16 personality system.
Hold on, pause. Can you not pause? Not really pause. PJ, keep it rolling. Can you do that, but with Christopher Walken's voice again? The astrology.
Oh God.
astrology, of the psychology, is a Myers-Briggs system,
Okay, I don't know. I just heard that. I wanted to hear it. We could clip that for your voice stuff later.
I'm afraid of plants, but as a gardener, I gotta deal with a lot of plants. So I bought some googly eyes, to put on the trees and the bushes and the flowers. But the grass, they wouldn't stay on the grass. So I gotta stay away from the googly eyeless grass.
Okay. Continue.
Good job.
Thank you. Thanks, Mom.
The way because you almost leaned into it. You said the
Mom,
astrology.
on the head if you want, I can.
Okay. I will take it. I will take the attention.
All right, continue.
But anyway, so I took this test because that stuff fascinates me, and I get multiple different ones, which is not supposed to happen. You're only supposed to have one, personality, and I have 4, which I find very disturbing.
Not good.
So no, it's like, but they're like, so there's 2 different ones, and I get the introvert and extrovert of both, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I'm an ENTP, an INTP, an ENTJ, and an
Can you
INTJ.
explain what those are, please?
Yes, that's what we're getting into. So I can't remember the exact terminology, but the I stands for introvert, E stands for extrovert.
N stands for intuitive.
Yeah, and then
S is sensing, T is thinking, F is feeling, and then you have J, which
Judging.
is judging, and P is
Yeah.
perceiving. So
Yeah.
then you have the combinations of those, which comes up with the 16 types.
yes,
Huh.
yeah, and I hover between like 2 different ones, but both sides of the coin have both of those, which to me says, oh, this is bullshit. But as the one that actually went to college for this, I'm curious what you think about this system.
So I'll talk about the MBTI, then we can talk about like the dichotomy of truly personality identifiers. So the MBTI, if we want a little history lesson, and forgive me, I've been drinking a little bit, but
Unforgivable.
I know it started off as based in the Carl Jungian
Mhm.
psychology, so we know a little bit about that, and then if I'm not mistaken, it was like 2 sisters or 2 cousins. They kind of took that and then pretty much were the originators of what became the Myers-Briggs type indicator that we know today, the MBTI. The issue with it is there's no psychometric validity, which is essentially a fancy way to say there's no statistical validity or studies done that shows that it's related to actually your personality. But it can be used for certain things, and I think because it's so popular, it gets hyped up and people really dive into it. But it can be beneficial. So the thing to keep in mind before I go into it is that it can change. The fact that you got 4, I was laughing because that doesn't necessarily surprise me for a couple reasons. One, it can change based on experience that you have throughout your life. And 2, because these things are on a dichotomy, we have to look at things on a spectrum, right? So if you take extroversion, introversion, for example, you might have, depending on the day you took it, because your mood can also impact when you take these tests, it could have fluctuated. So you're probably kind of like, you hover around the middle, so depending on the day you took it, it might have leaned E or it might have leaned I, for example, but you're probably close to the middle. You just have preferences.
See, that I get, but what bothered me about the differences was the fact that the end, the P and the J would change depending on the thing.
And so
that seemed odd.
It's preferences. It's also where you're taking these tests too. Like, we're actually taking it from an accredited MBTI person that can give you the test, or is it just like some online
like
things?
a BuzzFeed? Are you a pizza?
Right,
by
or
your
something, or
birthday?
somebody else that's just like throwing it online and put a URL and just like, here, like fucking take this. So. I'm not surprised, like I said, but if you take the true test, there are people that can fall like within a certain range, and then it's about preferences. So then you would kind of choose like where you lean towards in terms of your work life, your home life, etc. But it cannot be used for things like selection, for example. So you cannot use the MBTI for selection because, again, it can change and it doesn't have the validity to determine like how those personality traits will affect on the job. Some of the things it can be used for, like teamwork and professional development in terms of like how you're growing and how they see you moving through your career path and how they identify your development plan to help you succeed in the organization that you're in. So it can be used for those things, because those fluctuate obviously as you have experiences and get more knowledge and tools and resources, etc., to apply to whatever situation you're going to. But outside of that, it doesn't really have much validity, but it's so popularized, just kind of like astrology is, that people kind of take it as gospel. Now, if you want to get more of a valid, like, personality test, some of the big ones are like the Big Five. So that one's been psychometrically and statistically validated by lots of people and articles. So that's what's called OCEAN. So it's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So you're measured on those 5 scales. That's why it's the Big Five. And then there's also, it's hard to get it, but I believe it's like the Minnesota personality something. It's like a huge personality inventory that has to be given by a psychologist that knows how to rate it, and it's also got reverse coding ratings that way you can't like fool the system and try to kind of fake your way through it, so to speak. But yeah, the MBTI as a personality indicator isn't like valid in the sense of like it is core to who you are, but it is a way to understand how where you are right now, what experiences you had can be applied to collaborating with others or personal development. So it's a 2 sides of one coin, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's no validity in it as a personality indicator, like this is who you are, put a pin in it.
From what I've seen, there's none of these personality tests are really that validified.
Yeah,
Like
they're not
the color
psychometrically
one.
valid. They're not. Yeah.
What was
tested
the one that
along.
we did that's like super popular? The one that Jess showed us.
It's supposed to be E.
The Enneagram. Yeah.
Look at her knowing her shit. It's
What was
almost like
that?
she went to school for
I was
it.
an 8 nerd.
Yeah, that's the types like 1 through 9. I took it out of curiosity, but I haven't looked in the research to see if it's been tested in journal articles to see if it's got like repetition, to see if it's applicable. Like, so I don't know
The problem that I've seen with all of these is they're all so vague that you could fit, technically, you could tell yourself you fit on all of them.
Maybe, because it wasn't.
I mean, some more
mine
than
and
others.
PJ's was pretty on point.
Yeah.
To a
on that
certain
one.
extent, yes, and that's why the MBTI, like, I know that one better, because it's like preferences, right? It's like where you lean towards in terms of your behavior. The same thing with the DISC. The DISC is like not personality, but it helps identify preferences of work behaviors that you have. So it helps you understand how someone operates in a work capacity so you can work more beneficially with them. So, like, if you've ever taken the DISC, for example.
What is the DISC?
Does Jess listen to this
The
podcast?
DISC is dominance.
I'm just curious.
What's the
Because I was going to say,
I?
the Enneagram's actually been the best one so far. So she
I've taken it
brownie
before, and
points.
it was interesting. Like I said, I haven't looked into the validity of it, so I can't speak to that, and I don't want to, like, comment on something I'm not aware of. But
How like thoughtful of you.
oh, you're welcome.
Gross.
I don't. Gross. What?
Gross.
What?
Thinking before you speak.
Gross.
Ugh.
We don't do that around here.
But DISC is it's essential. Wow, Jesus! It's a
You
It's
should have worn
essentially-
your ass talking pants.
Mine are red.
He's not lying. He's not lying. I've seen him.
It's essentially work behavior, so they're categorized in these 4 groups. I'm trying to remember I, and I don't know why I'm blanking. There's dominance, and then the S is like, I'm gonna look it up.
Succulents.
No, and the C is conscientiousness, but hold on, I have
Young
to look it
PJ,
up.
can
I'm
you
so
look that up
sorry.
for us real quick?
No, he's not the young Jamie of this podcast. You have to do
I'll
your
look
own
it up.
research.
I don't mind.
Man, this guy's an
I
asshole.
don't mind making sure I'm correct.
Yeah, you don't want to have like an Esquire moment.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. The whole episode. Yeah, Squire means 4.
I swear that's what it said. Oh well.
We
Life
all
or
went
death.
with it. I was like, that
yeah.
sounds right.
It did sound right.
Okay, I had to look at it. Okay, it was I is influence, and then S is steadiness. So it's all about work behavior. So you can kind of figure out a profile. So dominance is someone that's very strong, aggressive in the way they present work, and the way they interact with others. They're very forceful. They punch in like with their words, and they can kind of take over and command a room. And they're like, we need to get this done. Here's the action items. Your I is you're more kind of influencing. Collaboration, getting everyone's opinion. They're kind of like the life of the party. They like to interact, engage. They're very excited and motivated. They're ready to jump into a project. They want to get all perspectives. They kind of feed off of being part of a group, and then you have the S, which is steadiness. So there's someone that's like, they're the good worker that might be kind of the quiet person.
So is that like he's a D, you're an I, I'm an S, or is it like percentages?
It's more what you said. Like, so it can be like you're an ID, like you have a capital I and a lowercase d. If you take the more advanced disc that's actually given by the people that own the patent on the test. But yeah, you fall into one of those categories. So definitely, like, you could be a small percentage of others, but there's one that
I feel like
stands
I'm
out.
like at least the first 3 already. Just like
I'm definitely not an S.
Yeah, S is steadiness, and it's more someone that I would think rolls under the radar. So they do a good job. They want to make sure their voice is heard, but they're not going to push themselves out. They want to make sure they understand the process. They want to make sure everything's gathered before they take action. They're very thoughtful about how they interact, but they may be kind of more of a quiet voice sometimes. And then you have your conscientiousness. So think of your very analytical people. They like process driven, extreme, like black and white. They need to understand the big picture. They need to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. They need to make sure everything's correct. They need to double check, triple check everything. So
I think
the
I'm
first
falling
3,
under all these. Yeah,
it's
first
the
3.
S one.
What's C?
C is conscientiousness.
That's the one she just went over.
Conscientiousness.
You're not a pay attentioner. You're not a P.
Well, there's a lot of topics happening here. So go over C again for me.
So C is conscientiousness. So think of like you're a person who's very analytical. They need like
that's
process
right.
Like me constantly asking you guys what
I thought we were
the
still
plan
talking about
is,
S.
kind of thing.
No. S was
S is I'm going to do the job, and I'm not going to say anything, basically. Like, I'm going to make sure I'm very meticulous about getting the thing done.
Right.
Am I understanding this right?
Kind of like I want to get my voice heard. I want to do the right thing, but they're not like, they could be overpowered by someone who's dominant.
They'd rather be the
usually
background
step back.
person.
So
The
they,
Steve Wozniak.
Right, but they want to make sure they're heard. They want to contribute, but they also they want to make sure things are constant. They don't like a lot of change, like that scares them.
Methodical.
Stuff like that. Yeah, kind of. So for example, like I'm an I think with like a lowercase d, but it's like I'm very much, I like to collaborate. I get excited. I want to know about people. I get invested in the beginning of the project. I want to jump in. But I've learned to hone more of like different behaviors of those things. But again, they're preferences of behaviors. It's not my personality at work or my personality. It's just these are the behaviors I exhibit when I'm in the work environment. And all it's really doing is allowing me to understand how my teammates operate so I can better communicate with them and we can find more mutual ground and work more exclusively together. That's all it's for.
Communication is the most important skill you can have in life. It is.
It's true. And knowing people's communication styles is important. So it's one of the first things I do, especially when I go into a new organization, like I'm a new hire. I set up like 30-minute meetings with like my team members, and I'm like, hey, tell me about like how you like to work. Tell me about the best way to reach you. Tell me, how you like to get information. Because then when I start learning their styles, now I have my preferences, but I adapt as much as I can to fit what they're needing, so I know that we can work more cohesively together, and I'm fine with doing that because I know it's realistic and that's how work's going to get done.
Yeah.
I think I hit all 4 of those.
You probably do, and we could probably find.
It just depends on what the objective is of each
For
situation.
me, you adapt to each situation. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the and most of us do as humans. That's just natural. But you have preferences of behaviors that you go toward that you probably don't even realize, and the test usually, when you take it, it makes you pick between a dichotomy of words. So there's 2 words and you have to choose one or the other. And it's a forced choice. So because you're doing a forced choice, it makes you pick a preference and really identify with that. And then you add up the numbers and you see your totals. And again, you'll probably have summations in each column in terms of each category of the disc. But whichever one is the largest, that's the one that is your preference. So I like to think about it that way. Again, it's not personality, but it's another tool to help better work.
It sounds like a pretty useful tool.
It's a good tool, and it's very common. It's been around since like God, forgive me if I say this wrong, like the 80s, I think. But someone
that's when
that's
when the concept of the workplace started to change. That was the 80s.
That's definitely right. That's definitely wrong. You can edit either one. It's fine.
No, wait. I found this information.
I don't mind being retracted, that's why I try to preface like, hey, I may have this slightly.
That sounds pretty accurate to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the date it was implemented. If someone's going to criticize you for that, screw them.
It's that one guy.
You got
awful.
You literally explained the entire concept in detail. Oh, she didn't know the date it was implemented, therefore invalid. Fuck off.
So that's the disc and the Mbti guy.
Is that one guy?
What other...
The stars aren't aligned on this.
Oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Titanic.
I walked out of Titanic because the stars were not accurate. Fuck off.
So what are other areas that you want to dive into?
Well, you mentioned the Stanford prison experiment earlier, so would you like to explain to our 10-person audience about that?
28, because the 29th is here. So.
Well, she'll watch her own podcast.
28th.
She's got a D with a capital I.
Oh, you're right.
It's the other way around, but
I knew that.
Ooh.
Well,
who's not paying attention
now?
now?
It turns out it was actually implemented in the 70s, so
So, I believe it was the Zimbardo prison study. And yes, you're right, Stanford. I think it was I want to say the 70s. So it was back, my social psychology professor always talked about, it was back when it was like more fun to do these experiments, because now like...
It wasn't fun for the people.
No, that's why they have...
This is great!
That's why the IRB exists. That's why IRBs exist, and that's why you have to talk about what your study is and what the purpose is, and that's why you have to preface, if you are going to take someone through potentially emotional trauma or something, you have to warn them, and that it came from this stuff. But anyhow,
quick thing on that. What is the IRB?
I believe it stands for International Review Board. So there's usually one at each college, and essentially
make sure you don't do like really like horrible.
It's checking for ethical, like appropriate.
Yeah. That's primarily for those out there who have no
like
idea what the anonym or the
United States
is.
of America, among many other countries, which some of them still do horrible experiments, but we did a lot of horror, which we'll get into. We did some
Milgram,
like
the famous ones, and so he jokes, but he also has seriousness in terms of like the effect it had on some of these people, and so that's why the IRB and some of these things exist now. Plus, it's harder too, but.
Like the LSD stuff?
Oh, MK Ultra? Yeah.
I was going to say it's harder too now because like a lot of these concepts were like the first of them, and then they're doing repetitious studies to make sure they're seeing validity around that theory actually being more of a solid theory, because as we know in science, like if something's a solid theory, nothing could ever be like, that's like it. But if it's a solid theory, it's kind of like that is the all-knowing. I don't know how
not to be confused with a conspiracy theory.
Oh, no, I'm talking scientific. I'm talking scientific.
Hypothesis is the guess. The theory is the evidence.
Correct. If there's plenty of evidence to support a theory, I mean, it's solidified, right, in science. So same thing with psychology. So back to Zimbardo. So I'm trying to remember what he was going after, but essentially the study was you had these students at Stanford, and they were given identity, so to speak. So you're either a prisoner or you were a guard. And I think he was trying to...
Or an imposter.
Damn it,
sorry.
sus. I think he was trying to see like how we identify in roles we're given, like how quickly do we adapt and do we change our behavior in terms of when you're given a role or position, do you occupy that as part of your identity?
Okay.
So it didn't take long.
No, it was disturbing.
It was supposed to be like a week or something, but they had to shut it down after like a day or two. I mean, like I said, it didn't take long, and essentially it became dangerous. So like the prisoners really felt like emaciated, they felt like lost, and then the guards got aggressive, verbally aggressive, intimidating, extremely restrictive on their prisoners and demanding, and it was like really scary how quickly they shifted to kind of treating people more humane, to really associating themselves with those identities, and how powerful it is when we attribute ourselves a certain identity or a role in society.
It's very, and this is something I've harped on millions of times, but like when you start labeling people as a group, which is why I hate, these identifiers, it's very easy to make them not human.
Yes.
And once you make someone not human, you can do all sorts of horrible things to them. And that's why I have a big problem with these, when you you separate all these things. Like who none of that should be irrelevant. What should be relevant is who you are as a person. And when you start labeling people and labeling yourself, you're not creating unity. You're basically just separating yourself. It's like that Dr. Seuss book where the ostrich-looking motherfucker doesn't have a green star tattoo.
Yes.
And so he gets a green star tattoo,
I know what
and
you're talking about.
everyone gets rid of theirs, and he's still the outcast, and he's
Yeah.
still not a person to them.
Yep.
Yeah, and it stood out to me as a
And
kid.
they had to shut it down because of how dangerous it got.
It got really bad, like
And
violent.
There's interviews of the students afterwards, like we're on both sides, and just seeing it, it's like it's kind of terrifying because they almost like it wasn't. I'm not communicating this like eloquently, but it was like they weren't themselves. They really kind of were almost in this trance in a way, and they're like, no, I was doing what I was told, or I was like, like it didn't register for them, I think, right away. But you can see some of those interviews, and it's.
That's why I always bring up that, when people like to say, oh, we'll never be like the Nazis. Yes, you will. Because no one in the Nazis before they became the Nazis thought that they would be like that.
Yeah.
But as soon as the pressure of
The
society.
snowball effect.
Yeah, well, not only that, but okay, so you have, so, I mean, I guess it kind of comes back to nature versus nurture, but there's a bunch of other psychological experiments that we can get into.
Yeah.
One of my favorite to study and talk about, not like it was a good study, but there was a study that's been done multiple times. I can't remember the name of it, but you might know.
Is it the milligram?
Maybe. Is that the one where they were, so basically though, like, they would, the whole experiment was someone would be in another room and they would be asked questions. And if they got the question wrong, they would be shocked, correct?
Correct.
And the person that would shock them was really the one they were doing the experiment on.
Correct. So what that's called is there was Confederates. So Confederates are people that are part of the study. So the Confederate was the person in the lab coat. So they were the one instructing the actual participant, the participants going through the study, right? The participant. So, and then there was a Confederate as well that was being shocked. So what it was is the Confederate and the participant are sitting in a room, and then the other Confederate, who's essentially the lab person with the lab coat on running the study, goes in and says, okay, you are the teacher to the participant, and then you are the learner to the Confederate. And then the learner goes into a separate room and is separated by glass, but the Confederate, the participant, the teacher cannot see it. And so what they say, the person in the lab coat tells the participant is, okay, you have to read, I think it's like a series of words or something. And then they're like, the Confederate who's on the other side has to read it back to the learner. And they're like, okay, every time the learner gets it wrong, you're going to shock them with this tool. And then each time I say to raise the voltage, you need to do so.
Yeah.
And so the Confederate would purposely get things wrong. And then the technician, which they previous saw this, they did say at any time you can leave. They prefaced that before the study started.
They can leave at any time.
Correct.
And to verify, the person being shocked is not actually being shocked. They're
Correct.
in a separate room, but they're pretending to be shocked.
Yeah, that's absolutely where I was going. But just to preface it so people know, the participant was told that they can leave at any time.
Yeah.
So you're right. The Confederate, that's the learner, was pretending to be shocked. So I think they had like pre-recorded sounds, and the learner would just play them of like kind of someone being in pain.
Like
or they would
begging for them to stop and stuff.
Like right, and they would act it out. And then the person who was in the lab coat that was essentially running the study would be like, keep going, keep going. And then there's eventually a point on the voltage meter that had a like skull and crossbones signify that would be almost deadly. And some of the Confederates would say stuff like, I have a heart condition, please stop. And I don't know the percentage, but it's very high. I think it's like high. 70 or over. Or I think it's even more than that. I'll confirm this after this, but went up to either the deadly voltage or really high, and only a small percentage actually were like, I can't do this, I need to leave. And all because the person running the study had this lab coat on, and that gave the appearance of authority. So how quickly we are to be obedient to authority. And they interviewed the people afterwards, which I recommend people watching. I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube. But they were just like, yeah, I was doing what I was told to do. I thought it was okay. And like, and they kind of rationalized a bit. But you can also tell they have some guilt. Like, they're not inhuman. But the power of that. And I think a lot of us would look at that and say, oh, I wouldn't do that. I'm a good person, blah blah, and not saying anyone's not. But the power that these environmental aspects have on us, which is what social psychology looks at, is the environment and their social situations and how they impact how we interact in situations, is so powerful. I don't think we realize like how encompassing that is.
And that's why when people say that we'll never be like the Nazis, it really disturbs me, because whenever someone says that, that usually means they're definitely going to be like the Nazis. You know, it's like when people say, "Oh, this didn't work because we didn't do it." You're going to make the exact same mistakes, because that not only did we prove that you will blindly listen to authority, but we also proved that if someone tells you that the other person's not human, you'll immediately agree with that and you'll just go with the flow. Most people do that.
What does give me a little bit of faith, so I want to like try to put a little optimism that I like to do in there. They've done these studies, and it's hard because like almost most people know about Milgram studies because it's one of the most popular things studied. I mean, you learn about in like basic psych. Yes. But is some of these newer studies that are done.
Where's the gunshot? David's here.
Oh, okay.
Optimism.
David's here.
Wow.
Magic.
The magic of editing.
I'll tell you about that.
Okay, so here's my drop of optimism in terms of the Milgram studies. There have been repetitions of those studies that have come out to try to look at different identifiers that can be put in the study to see what can change to reduce the rate of people's obedience to authority. So there's a couple things, and there's two different studies I'm going to reference. So one of them is was taking the actual lab attendant, the person that exhibited that authority, out of the room and having them be over the phone instead of physically present. So what that did is that reduced the rate of people actually agreeing to go up to more deadly voltages when they were shocking the learner. And they would step out quicker because they didn't see them. So they felt that they could, I think, disassociate easier to that. And then the other higher rate of people actually walking out of the study at like less high voltages or just walking out, period, was having another Confederate that was in the room, whether the lab attendant was there and present or over the phone, that was really indifferent in terms of statistical significance. But having that Confederate say, I don't agree with this, I don't think this is right, like instantly just having that one naysayer that walked out, it made the other participants that are actually participating feel comfortable to say, I don't want to participate in this either. So that gives me a little bit of hope that there are some certain ways in which the situation can be set up that can reduce the people's.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's all about, certain people have the capacity to, think for themselves and make their own decisions. Unfortunately, most people just go with the easiest path.
NPCs.
Yeah. It's
You're
true,
talking
though.
about the Southern Confederates, right?
Not the real Confederate.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. I was like, how did you bring me back to life?
PJ, individuals
the concept is
typically
the people
make
who
a
were
difference.
running it,
Individuals,
but they were really
PJ.
Get dumb it down a little bit.
I mean, it's hard. It's unfortunately you have to usually have that one person that kind of really disagrees with. There's another study, it's like really simple, and I forget the famous psychologist and I apologize, but it was like a line study that was also done around the time, and it was a bunch of Confederates and one participant, and essentially they were given like a line. It was like line A and line B, and they were exactly the same length. So everyone was like, is line A the same length as line B? And so everyone's like, yes. And then usually the participant is like the last to answer. And so the first few ones they get correct. So the participant feels like, okay, we're good. This is like easy, no problem. Everyone's seeing what I'm seeing, to validate that shared experience among the people. And then they start doing it where it's a lot more obvious, where like A is longer and B is like shorter, for example. And then they're like, is A and B the same? And so all the Confederates will say yes. And I guess the participant, and usually most of the time they'll agree, because they're starting to question their sense of what they're seeing. They're like, well, if everyone else is thinking they're the same length, then like what's wrong with me? Like something wrong with me, because the majority is agreeing with this designation of the line length. And it's just something as simple as line length, that like people feel that sense of like they must conform, or that they have the wrong idea. And it's just such a powerful mechanism in terms of like our social situations that we don't even realize the impact that it has on us.
Just a quick nerd thing. Star Trek Next Generation, when Patrick Stewart is tortured,
God.
there are only 3 lights. Watch that episode, it's awesome.
Yeah, there's also the same thing they do where like people.
It's awesome. I'm sorry. It's when Star Trek was actually worth watching.
There's also
When they did this whole thing called plot and storytelling, it was great.
There's also another
Someone's
similar
angry.
study as the line study. It's like they
true.
a bunch of Confederates and then the participant, and the study is actually taking place in the waiting room. So you think that you're filling out a form, like you're going to take place in a study. So it's like, but it's in the waiting room, and so everyone's just filling it out. And then the Confederates start doing weird stuff like standing up or like walking across the room, and like everyone's doing it. And so you see like if the participant will actually engage in the same
I've seen
behavior.
that one. It's awesome. Like they'll
It's
just like
something so
awkwardly
simple,
stand out.
So simple, and they feel like they have to conform because like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I missing something? So instead of asking or questioning, they just go along and
Yep.
comply.
Yep.
It's something as easy as that.
Yep.
Social media.
Yep.
So it's so fascinating. Like if I didn't do industrial organizational psychology, I think social psychology would have been what I went into. So I was always fascinated by how the environment and social situations interacted and had such power over us as people. So even though we have our individual personalities of how we go about the world and our experiences, there are some shared things of how we act and behave depending on certain environments and situations that shape what's going on. So I think that's fascinating. But I was never big on like researching or doing the stats part, so I was like, nah, I'm good. I want to do something more practical.
Forensic
Makes sense.
psychology and criminal psychology were the ones that fascinated me.
Forensic is cool, like criminal profiling.
Yeah, that was my dream job, was to be an FBI profiler.
It's that shit is
I am
competitive.
an
It's
FBI
hard.
profiler.
Too much school, man. Well,
It's a lot of
my thinking was I will eventually
I'm the
meet
one they
Dana
profile.
Scully and we'll get married, but
I'm a
alas, she's
serial
fictional.
murderer.
True.
Dream girl though, dream girl.
Oh, she's a badass. So I'm not. Yeah, I respect that.
Jennifer Hudson?
She's cool
I thought you were
too.
talking about Dreamgirls.
No.
Yeah.
No, not the movie. Sorry.
Dude,
Like he meant like Dream Girls, like a Dream
what
Girl.
a movie! What a fucking movie!
It is a great movie though.
Sorry.
It's not as good as Who Shot Captain Alex, which if you don't know, I will show you
I was about
later.
to say I have no idea what
I
the heck
I
you're
am
talking
looking
about.
forward to this moment. It's gonna be great. Who shot Captain Alex? Who? It's that good.
Okay, I trust.
So, David, what have you been doing today?
Watching nothing but scary movies.
Yeah, on what? Shutter?
Shudder, best
Yeah.
goddamn channel. in the
Free
world.
plug. You owe us money, Shutter.
Shudder, I have to pay for you, but it's worth it.
It's a channel.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Straight
Best
horror
channel.
movies, apparently.
Nothing but.
Horror has. I have a hate-love relationship with horror because when it comes to like just blood and gore, like I get it. There's the added effect and like the cringe, but like then when there's no plot or character development,
You like
it's so
smart horror.
tropey. Yeah, like give me a thriller, give me a psychological
Yeah.
dark
So
thing where I
it
can
breaks
get
it
in.
down to thriller, monster. I like the poltergeisting ones.
For me, because I'm actually a big, like, horror is probably, well, my favorite genre is like cheesy 80s, 90s, like action movies where they have one-liners and just beat up 100 people. But, my second favorite genre would be horror, specifically sci-fi horror and psychological horror. But, a horror movie done right, like John Carpenter's The Thing.
It was really good.
I'm sorry, it's
I think we talked about it already before, but
it is.
it was
It's
a really
the
good.
greatest horror film ever made, and it was done on a low budget.
Like, Jennifer's gonna be so mad because I rented Peninsula today, or bought it for $5 and I didn't tell her.
Which one's Peninsula?
Yeah, I've
Train
never
to
heard
The one
of
that
that.
takes
Oh,
place on a
yeah, no,
peninsula.
it was fun. It's like Fast and
Hey,
Furious meets
hey.
Train to Busan.
I like the ending. Those Koreans are so good at
Oh, dude!
fucking movies.
Okay. Can I rant about how Korea is the best at movies
They're
right
getting
now?
money right now. There's
Like,
2 new shows on Netflix.
South Korea's cinema is like going through its renaissance.
Parasite.
That one too.
Parasite?
That's what gave them the money
Fucking
because
Parasite.
now on Netflix, because of
Oh.
Parasite, all this stuff. There's like 3 new shows on Netflix, full seasons that are the Asian based. That's a very anime
Parasite
feel,
was so
but it
good.
looks amazing.
Okay,
Great graphics.
so if you haven't watched Korean cinema yet and you don't mind reading subtitles because the voiceovers are going to be terrible because
Always watching the language. that
yeah
was
because they're going to
filmed
do
for
weird
sure.
they're going to do weird American
Oh, I hate
accents.
it.
They got a lot
When they
better.
dub
They got-
it.
They have gotten better.
They got better, but
but
it's always better. Like
But
anime,
when you
yeah.
watch like Spanish, like if you're watching Telemundo and you're watching it and they got the guy doing Sylvester Stallone's voice in Spanish, it's rough. But I would recommend, obviously, Parasite. That's the famous one. But there's a Korean War film from the early 2000s called Taegu-gi, The Brotherhood of War. It is like Saving Private Ryan quality, except, you know, more based on a true story, I think. Don't quote me on that. But I highly recommend it. You know, 5 stars.
And Train to Busan.
Train to Busan was my next one. It's the best zombie film I've seen since 28 Days Later. Then I'm going to go with The Host, which is you've seen that one. Oh God! So it's a monster movie. It's not quite a kaiju with like a giant monster, but basically it's a political commentary on like it's a Korean thing. You won't get the politics, but as far as an American outside view, basically the pollution in the local water system creates this mutant monster that goes on a rampage, and it is a very unique and actually refreshing take on the whole like bad environment creates monster
Multiple monsters or just one monster?
There's just one big one.
There's just one big one, yeah.
Okay.
It's fucking kick-ass. But Korean cinema, like there's another one called, David, help me out with this one.
TV show?
Kingdom is a kick-ass TV show. It's a zombie show that takes place in like the samurai age of like feudal Japan, but it takes place in Korea.
Not to be confused with Kingdom, the fighter UFC one, which is also good.
Yeah, but this one is like Game of Thrones with like zombies that's actually not shit. And there's another one though that's like really, really famous that they did a crappy American remake, of course. But Dave, help me out with this. Well, there's this big hallway fight where like the guy's been.
Old Boy.
Yeah, Old Boy. Oh my God.
Yeah, the original one with the hammer.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Well, it's one of the craziest films I've ever seen. Like that hallway fight scene alone makes the film worth watching. And then there's like some other ones. Trying to think of like I Saw the Devil was pretty intense. That's pretty intense. I wouldn't recommend it if you're sensitive, emotionally or stomach wise.
I was like,
But it's
am I going back to my rave days? Like, holy shit.
But no, dude, Koreans, they know how to make freaking art.
David's coming in on this one.
David's coming in hot.
COVID stimulus, $600.
We already covered this, David. You're too late.
Did we? Even 180 days that they have?
All right.
Pentagon has?
Please explain, David.
Signed today under old Senator Marco Rubio that they put
Yeah, boy.
They put a little package in there saying Pentagon had 180 days to release all the information they have on UFOs. Signed in that package.
Isn't that the dude that like randomly would like chug water in the middle of his like speeches?
The one who I assume you get thirsty talking.
Really thirsty.
like Facebook guy?
No, like he was like in the middle, like so he was basically doing like he was talking like this, very important speech.
Could have been parched.
Back to talking,
So not like Facebook guy.
I don't know what Facebook guy. Oh, Mark Zuckerberg, where he would. This is Mark Zuckerberg, who's a reptilian. All right, he's being questioned by the government, and like they're like really ripping his ass, and he's like, "I'm parched."
I remember that. It was like watching a robot give testimony. It was kind of creepy.
He's nothing like
That
that.
technology
You know how much
sideways.
he was trained though by consultants and stuff to be able.
I just think he's very socially awkward.
He is to a point.
Like Bill Gates, they're both very similar, whereas they're very introverted, and I think they have a hard time like connecting with people because they both got very rich and successful at a very young age. Mm-hmm. So like at that age, like they don't really have enough time to adapt to like normal social behavior. Plus, they're very aggressive introverts.
So Dylan, obviously people out there wondering what happened after that last podcast. Because we kind of told people we were going out back to that bridge.
Oh, God, yeah.
So we need to talk about what took place as we went back out there to find more evidence.
Well, it was, we got abducted by aliens and haunted, but no. So we went out there with the plan of going through the other side to get to the gate that we saw that you guys saw in the last video.
Yeah, the trail that was a 30 to 40 minute hike.
How far away is the other side and like what?
So the other side of the bridge is like a few feet, but the problem is in order to get to the other side of the bridge, you have to go on like what is that, 2 or 3 miles?
It was like a 30, 40 minute hike.
Is it a paved trail? Or is it something that you guys?
No,
it's like a bike trail mixed with walking trails.
Yeah, so it's in a place called River Legacy Park in Arlington, Texas, and it's got multiple different branching paths.
Yes,
so
I've been there before.
A typical walking path. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to go at like 7:00 at night. No, it was 6 when we got there, and of course it got dark immediately.
Yep.
And it started to,
A biker looked at us funny.
Yeah,
Kinda
he was like, "What are you guys doing here?"
And then a woman with her kids were like, "Yeah, no, where, y'all going to the bridge? Oh, that's the other way." We're like, "No, we're going to the Screaming Bridge." She's like,
and
"What?"
like she went pale. Like she went.
Like, well, I'm
And
sorry,
like,
what?
was like,
She said, I'm getting on out of here.
And she was like, good luck, and like ran off with her kid, like ran off like it was in a film. And we were like, and of course, me, the skeptic, was like, okay. And so we kept going, and then it started to sprinkle, and PJ's like, we should turn back. PJ was correct, by the way. I'll give him his due. But we decided, we drove all the way from Dallas. Let's just get this over with. It won't take that long. Mistakes were made.
Okay. So we're getting to the bridge. So
yeah, so we're on our way to the bridge. Everything's fine. It's actually pretty chill. It's really peaceful. We're having a good time. We're making jokes. We're making good progress, and we get almost there, and then there's this like super like almost like get ready to drink. I'm about to make a Lord of the Rings reference, but it's like a 90-degree angle, like in the Two Towers, when Gandalf comes back, and it's just like straight down. That's how we had to walk.
Well, there was a as far as the hills go, they all sucked, right?
No, but it was like that last. PJ, you remember what I'm talking about?
From what I was told is that somebody was being held and they were scared. They had to get naked with body warmth.
It's true.
I don't know if that's true
It
or
was
not.
just like Without a Paddle. But basically, we had to like climb up with our equipment, try to climb this like 90-degree hill.
And we part of the bike trails.
Yeah, and we finally get up this thing, and we walk up to the bridge.
Okay.
And everything's chill, like it's fine.
Calm.
It's
calm.
It's
like
what
this,
you'd expect from a park.
just a normal
like,
park, yeah,
absolutely.
And it's like disturbingly calm. Like, this is haunted, really? Because like on the other side, we had when we first went to the other side, we had a lot of like weird like noises. We were all feeling really like at first we were fine, but towards the end we got legitimately freaked out because we were hearing we legitimately heard things around us like constantly moving like that weren't there. Like we look with our flashlights. You can see me walking off in the distance to go investigate.
Kind of separate and
because I'm legit like, what the hell is this? Like, there's no one else out here. There's no way that there's gonna be people walking.
You're being as cynical as possible with also like experiencing what's happening around you.
And so like me being the skeptic, I'm like, well, I gotta find a rational explanation for this.
I'm a skeptic too, so
like I'm wandering off, and like then we come back and we listen to the audio and we hear like the weird audio stuff on there.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, well, we absolutely have to go back because we had uncomfortable feelings, and we heard what we sounded like voices.
Right.
So we got to, as a scientific mindset, I got to know if we actually caught something.
Yeah, let me have more evidence.
Because this is going to be groundbreaking if we actually did catch something.
Mm-hmm.
So bath salt. I want to make sure it wasn't bath salt.
Yeah, we need to make sure David wasn't actually
really high on bath salt.
And so we walk out, we get up to the bridge, and we're chill, like everything's fine. And I'm like, this sucks. I was really hoping to get possessed by a ghost. And so we get on the actual bridge, and like we're walking around. It's chill. Like obviously it's not haunted because people are out there spray tagging it. like tagging it with street art. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And disrespecting it. So like for me in my head, I was like, well, it's obviously BS because if there's some sort of like paranormal spirit out there, they're not gonna want you to disrespect their grave site. They're gonna kill you. They ain't gonna let you just I had sex here and stuff like that.
Kill you, but scare you off.
Well, you know what I mean, though. You're not gonna have time.
You're not gonna let you decimate.
Yeah, you're not gonna have time to desecrate, the site of a tragedy.
Every scary place has penis drawn on it.
It's a pattern. It's a pattern. Yeah.
It's not even.
But
it's probably just like some assholes who think it's funny and they're like,
exactly.
The child is saying it's all penis.
It's the edgelord.
Or they're trying to
and I would not know anything about that. But so we get on the bridge, and I kind of walk in first because I have the most cojones, and
Hold on.
Who was the first one on the bridge?
Who was the person who said, if any of you bastards get on that bridge before me, I'm going to be mad at y'all? I was like, fine, Dylan, you can go on there first.
Pretty sure I was the one
Your
that said
ego's wanting you to touch the bridge first because you're Mr. I got to feel it first. That's the only reason you got to go on.
Do you feel like that around penis?
Not Mr. Cojones.
All right.
I went all the way to the edge. You never went to the edge.
Yeah, I did.
No, you
I
didn't.
did everything you did.
Did we catch that on camera?
Do we feel
Yes,
better
we
about
did.
like our pissing contest? You get back to the story.
I feel like I
love
can edit this and
pissing
make it
contests.
real gay. I can get to the edge, man. But I don't go all the way.
But
It's not
anyways,
good.
we're walking around this bridge and nothing's happening.
Okay.
Like, you know, we're not
Yeah.
the whole night we did not experience any, like, we heard animals in the bushes, so that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't experienced anything weird, not once did any of us feel uncomfortable, no cold spots, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're on the actual bridge, and we're like, what the hell?
It
And
was very peaceful.
it was chill.
Like,
I could
camp there. Like, it
have
was that nice.
we could have set up
Wow.
a tent and spent the night and
Yeah.
been fine.
Yeah.
And
Except the next thing that happened.
well, we'll get to that.
Jumping ahead.
yeah.
Jumping ahead.
But you know, so we you know we pull out the microphone and we're like, hey yo, ghosts, come talk to us again. Like what's going on? What this feels kind of lame, and you know we got nothing. And you know, so we turn around and we're like, okay, well I guess it's busted. And so we did our jokes. We're like, oh, you're busted,
Yeah.
And as we're getting off the bridge and getting ready to make our trek back, which our hike back, which should have been easier, but alas, a tornado storm hit as soon as we got off the bridge.
So we couldn't pull out our phones.
So not only was it
No
like
GPS.
like I mean like
Right,
we're,
everything
I was trying to
fucked
go
and it's
purely off of
flying.
memory.
we had no signal. It was torrential storm.
Multiple
We had-
paths are
Yep,
here. Like
yep.
you can go all over the park.
Yep,
Multiple
there's
paths.
no sign. The
no
signage
like
there
this
is
way
terrible.
out. There's
Right,
no
right.
exit this
and,
way.
and then all of a sudden and we're already like, damn it.
The camera, we can't have it
But-
out because it's
but-
pouring down rain.
So we can't capture any footage. But this is the best part.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we hear.
And I told him, I was like, man, I hope that's actually a tornado siren and not Silent Hill siren.
Right? And I'm just like, well, we're screwed. And then
Yeah.
and then literally as soon as the tornado siren goes, he texts us like, oh, hey guys, I don't think I'm gonna make it. There's probably a tornado coming. And we're like, oh, thanks, David.
Yeah, like there's a tornado on the way. I'm gonna
So
chill.
you got to you dodge a bullet essentially.
Yeah.
Yes, I was on the way with my
Shit.
new car.
And so like we get that text and we're like, oh, thanks, bro. Like thanks for that heads up.
He actually
And-
sent that text before we even got halfway.
We just didn't notice. We didn't
Yeah,
see it,
we
you know.
didn't notice. 'Cause
Oh
we're-
yeah, you're fully
yeah.
focused on the experience.
And
Welcome.
so we don't have a way to get GPS back to my car, and it's pouring so bad, and it's all dirt roads, so it turns into this mud swamp and just flooding, and we're all wearing like crap shoes because
I specifically said to Dylan as he was behind me, I was like, hey, it's a good thing at least, it's pretty fresh, so it's not mud yet. And within 5 minutes,
Like,
it started coming up already.
Never do that. Never
he Murphy lawed us.
Yeah,
I literally
no.
said,
As
well,
soon
at
as he
least it's
said
not
that-
ultra muddy like you
And
saw in the videos.
like literally, as soon as he
Fuck.
says that, I turn around. I'm like, "Where the hell did PJ go?" And he's over there stuck in the mud in his crap skater shoes, and he's like trying to.
PJ!
Yeah,
Oh.
PJ's like stuck in quicksand because his crap shoes are
there
like
was
not
actually
made for this.
there were sinkholes
Oh, there
appearing.
is legit
We
sinkholes.
literally saw sinkholes.
Like we were like we angered the ghost gods.
Yeah, you'd
and
be
like,
fucking terrified. Like, get me out of here. I'm gonna
yeah,
die.
and we're like, great, and we're also thinking that we're gonna be locked in there with the gate closed.
Because
Oh,
we were
yeah,
on a
they
time
closed it
frame. I was like,
Yeah.
we have an hour and a half. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's what we thought.
I led us the wrong way.
We went 45 minutes out of our
45
way.
minutes
God,
the
oh
wrong
my God.
direction.
Somehow. And then the best part is when we finally were able, the rain finally stopped, and we were able to get to the pinpoint that PJ set for my car on the phone. Thank you, PJ. We were able to finally get back on the right path, which took another 30 minutes. We found out that if we would have just turned left when we got off the bridge and walked straight, we would have made it to this
Car within 30 minutes or less.
No,
Within
we
about
would have
20
made it.
minutes.
Not only would we have made it to this paved road,
Yeah.
like actual park road.
It wasn't technically a path.
Yeah,
But it was.
But it was, and we
Right.
would have made it to my car in like 10 minutes, and we could have gone on that path to the bridge in 10 minutes, but we went on through this stupid hike
we went
thing
the actual hike trail.
because we didn't know because it wasn't on the stupid map, and so we finally get to my car and we're like covered in sweat and mud and like.
This is
I'm
how you
pretty-
get naked, right?
Well, hold
Yeah.
on. When we first
Okay.
discovered that we were lost,
Oh,
when
we
the
had to
rain
go-
disappeared, the area we were in, I was like, okay, now it's really starting to not look familiar. It literally looked like the Lord of the Rings marshlands.
Yeah.
Like we thought we were about to
Oh,
start
I
seeing
saw
bodies in the
I saw
marshes.
dead soldiers in the mud.
Drink.
Yeah.
I know y'all
Yeah.
I can't even begin to fathom like the sense of panic.
Oh, we were all
fear, like-
at each other's
Not
throats.
necessarily panic or even at each other's throats. It was more or
Uh.
less. It was like kind of like a Screw us, right?
Well, from the
No,
audio that
I
I
would be the
got,
opposite.
But we were still kind of enjoying it, but not enjoying. The only thing that was pressuring us was the sense of we might actually get locked in.
actually, they would come save you
I
guys
would
at
feel
that
all of that.
I
and
think-
the scared for every. Oh.
I think for us that it was the only part that we were like, I think literally like angry with each other was when it was actually raining and the sirens were going off.
No.
Because we were all kind of like, dude, this is your fault, kind of, but not like not.
I wasn't really. I was like, this is kind of cool
What
if
I
we
mean
weren't
is,
on an
what I
actual
mean
time
is we
constraint.
were like, you know, we could have avoided this.
Yeah.
But once we were like, okay, well, we're in this situation. Who
We're
cares?
already
Who cares?
there.
So
No.
it sounds like the story had at least a somewhat silver lining because you got back to the car and I'm guessing.
Well,
you
we
left
bonded
before.
over almost dying in a
The
tornado
gate
storm in a
was
haunted
open.
park.
They block off the entrance one, but the exit one was
Yeah.
Actually, all three of them died that night.
Yeah, we never left.
Goose.
spooky.
But no, but so you know,
Are you sure?
but it was
I'm
like,
one of those
man,
good ghosts. You know, I can fully manifest
Well,
myself.
I mean,
yeah,
we-
okay,
we
yeah, I
probably
can't.
went
It's
through
not
hell.
haunted
I'm not gonna watch you when
blind.
you go to the bathroom. He's one of those good kind of
yeah,
ghosts.
we never saw Hell's Gate. Like
So
there was
it's a
no
haunting
indication
blind
of
manner,
it.
You can just interact with everything.
I loved
Right.
that. I loved that one. Yeah.
But yeah, no, we never saw Hell's Gate. No ghosts. No Confederate soldiers.
Right,
nothing.
right.
Really, the most haunting thing about it was how crap the signage was.
And the toilet went off when we walked past the stalls or whatever. When we finally got to the
Yeah.
end and we're walking past that like outhouse stall thing in the park, you know, we heard a toilet go like flush, and we're like,
You know, those kind of
let's
stalls
go.
are for certain type of
But
interaction.
yeah, I mean, basically, that we spent another 2 hours.
The park lights are off when we finally got like out into the open,
Yeah.
like back to the normal park.
Of course.
Yeah, but we made it.
Well,
And my-
obviously
and
you're
my
here
car
to-
started,
Yeah, you're
so-
here today,
Yeah.
so you know.
His
it's
biggest thing
fine.
was if my car's gone.
If my car is towed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose my shit.
Oh,
That was my thing, 'cause I don't
yeah.
care
So
if we're-
that was the only thing that was pushing, like, edging us to, like...
That was the only thing that was
getting
upsetting
kinda,
me.
like, agitated or mad or, and stuff. But for the most part, outside of, like, you know, us having to hike in the rain and stuff,
Yeah.
like,
Honestly,
for the most
it was-
part, I
it was
really
kinda
kind of
cool.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, same. Like it was very
I just remember
cinematic.
driving. I just remember driving like, oh, those guys are dead.
Yeah.
Oh, they're dead.
Well, I mean, like
I'm
it
going
was
to tell Jennifer.
seriously, like,
your
it
brother's
was-
dead.
Like,
It was-
sorry,
And,
we were
and in my head, it's like,
it was
pretty
like-
sure
it
some
was
gay
like-
position. They're all holding each other, just like that Pompeii lady.
I told him that. I was like, are we going to have to find, like, a cave somewhere?
Drink,
Yeah,
because I'm
dude,
about
I
to
knew
make
it.
a Lord.
I don't have anything left.
I knew it. I was like,
Get
dude,
some
they're
more.
dead.
No.
They're going to be in
All right,
gay
no.
positions.
I'm going to go get a drink.
I'm going to have to go find their body in ungay positions they died in.